Okay, so today it is 3:20 p.m. in Australia, in Sydney or New South Wales time. It'll be interesting to see who's online today and who gets the little bell dinging. So I hope you're all well. Again, I look like I've just come in and out of the, I don't know, got out straight out of bed again. And I haven't today. I've been up for a long time. Doing lots of stuff. So I'll pull a card from the Animal Spirit Guidebook until we see who we've got on board. We were going to have a chat today. We'll see how we go. Otherwise, I'll leave it till tomorrow. Don't forget, I've got a Facebook Live tomorrow if you want to come over for a card pull. Hey, Hayley, how you going? Hi, Suzanne. Yeah, I've got a Facebook Live at 9 a.m. Australian time. Wow, I look like I'm sweating. If I look hot, I'm not. Well, comfortable. So don't forget to come over. Hey, Amanda, how you going? I'm glad I'm on the buzzer this time. Hey, Lenore, how you going? You got the bing too. Nice. Hi, Jody. How are you? I'll pull a card from the Animal Spirit while we're just seeing if anybody else comes on board with us. And I'll chuck the cards all over the floor and see if I can pick one. Okay, we'll take the first one out. Okay, we have the lizard. Alrighty, that's what the lizard looks like. Having lots of dreams lately about animals and things, so I'm not quite sure what that is, but I seem to be doing quite a bit of animal dreaming. So there must be messages in there. I go and look and check when I see them. The lizard is a fire spirit animal. And he's hard to find like all the rest of them, I guess. Okie dokie. No, he's gone. You have to bear with me. Honestly, I cannot work out. I'll have to get to know this book better. I have to work out where they are because, there he is. Every time I go looking, it takes me forever to get to where I need to be. The lizard is about instinctual, sensitive to the subtle dreamer. Interesting. The lizard is an expert in the realm of sensory perception. As if it has a sixth sense, the lizard hears what is yet to be spoken and sees what is yet to manifest. Although this is an amazing gift, it can easily wear the lizard down. Big crowds, lots of travel or overstimulation will drain a lizard of their magical essence. This card is an indication to pull back from the bright lights in big city and return to the inner artist who's been whispering your name. This is really funny because we were talking about this the other day with the empath thing. You know, overstimulation, protecting yourself, those sort of energies. Oh, hey, how you going? Maria, you're on too. How lovely. You dreamed about snakes. Now, for some unknown reason, snakes get a pretty, they get a bit of a raw deal, really, snakes. People always think that it means that you've got somebody evil around you. But a lot of the time with snakes, it's about, hey, Scott, how you going? Hey, Queen of Water. A lot of the time with snakes, the snakes are appearing because we're going through a transformation. So it's quite interesting that we immediately go to we've got a snake in our midst when actually it's a really good sign. As long as, I think if the snake bites you, there's an omen in the snake biting you. But I think other than that, a snake isn't a bad thing to dream about. So you could be going through a bit of a transformation, Suzanne. Yeah, there's a guy I knew the other day said to me, the beach is open down there. I'm like, yeah, but if you come down to see me, we've got to stay 1.5 meters apart anyway. What's the point? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Tiffany. Red's my favorite color, but it looks like my face is really red. That's why I said I look really hot. Yeah, see, snakes, ego shifting. There is something in the snake biting you that might be a little bit of an omen, but I can't remember exactly what it is. I live on the outskirts of Sydney in Wollongong, so we're right on the beaches here. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, thanks, Scott. Oh, all the compliments. I'll just go red again, see, and then I'll match the top. But a lot of people ask me to come on and talk about twin flames, and I thought we'll do that on the weekend because I'm more likely to have a few people up. But the thing is, at the end of the day, somebody can go back and watch this anyway. So yes, Wollongong is beautiful. I always say it's got the most beautiful beaches I've ever known here. Port Kembla Beach is absolutely stunning, and then we have 7 Mile Beach. Some of those beaches are absolutely amazing, like they're just beautiful. Thanks. I should probably have the fan on. I wasn't hot before I sat down. I just think I get sort of pumped with all the energy and everything. So it's pretty cool. So I wanted to talk to you about twin flames because I feel that sometimes people have this idea about twin flames that probably I want to help you understand a little better. Um, the Yeah, the idea of twin flames, as far as I've been shown. So, I guess I learned a long time ago. I never really read about it. It was something that was shown to me, and I'd always been told that I would meet somebody in this lifetime that would change my life, and that was going back to many years ago. I think the first time I was told may have been at Warrawong at the markets there, and they're no longer there. I think there's a Bunnings there now. And I remember sort of looking for answers then. The idea of a twin flame, now you only have one in a lifetime, and they travel with you throughout lifetimes. You may just have different roles, you may not meet up with them, but their idea of them is to come into your life to help you make the changes you need to make. Hey Melanie, you got on today. To make the changes that you need to make. Now, generally with the twin flames, there are, and I'm happy for you to ask questions as I'm going here so I don't get too off track, because I get a little bit off track sometimes. With the twin flames, there's generally a runner and a chaser. That's right. Queen of Water's right on track with this. And this is why I want to talk to people about it so let me just go back. We have a runner and a chaser. Generally, one person's done all the work. They're usually quite psychic, quite in tune, at least fairly spiritual. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be incredibly psychic, but they're usually a little bit more in tune. The other person generally doesn't have very much spirituality at all, and they can be masculine, feminine, but not necessarily male, female. It's just one's got more masculine energy, one's got more female energy, and the idea is for them to come into balance. So once they've met, usually they spark something within each other that sets them off onto a pathway of self-discovery. They are doing that to bring you into union, not for a romantic reason. So you may still fall in love with them. You may still have a relationship with them. It's not saying that. Some twin flames never come together at all, but they spark something within each other to help them raise their own consciousness. And the idea is to bring them to the place they need to be. Now, if the other person's done the work and they come back together, there is a chance of union. But for the most part, it's not meant to bring you back into union. It's meant to wake you up, to help you move forward to become the best person you can be. Now, if twin flames do come together, it's fantastic because if they do come together, they are meant to do fantastic things for the planet. So you've got two people who both go away, who both come into union as separate beings and then come into union as a couple. And then the work they have to do is great. So they may, their powers together far greater than as single people. And that might be healing or working together esoterically, but then it may be philanthropy, it may be working in the community, but together they are a powerful force. Hey, Cherie, how you going? A lot of people have the romantic relationship, Scott. It doesn't mean they don't have the romantic relationship. There's my iPad again. You still have a romantic relationship. It may be a friendship. It may be that you come together and you don't actually have any relationship at all, but that person awakens something in you that helps you move to be a better person than you are. It's to awaken your potential, I guess. Now, Queen of Water said it's about inner work, not about union at all. I mean, it can be, but that's not the journey. See, perfectly summed up. So there's a lot of people who all, oh, you're thinking of travelling up Sydney way. Oh, I hope that we can all meet up when you come my way at some stage or another. So there's this sort of feeling that sometimes people think that it's more about the romance because of the fact a lot of people who are in twin flame relationships or meet their twin flame have usually had really traumatic childhoods or have had a hard life along the way. So there may be a lot of psychological reasons why they go through changes. So the idea is for them to understand their own journey, understand how to heal, because they may then go on to heal other people. But a lot of people have had childhood trauma. A lot of people have had really PTSD, whatever it is, they are then going on to heal themselves. And that is the journey. That's right. So you understand it. A lot of people don't understand that with the twin flame relationship. I guess they see it as the person and them had a romantic relationship. Things didn't work out for whatever reason. And then when they separate for whatever reason that is, very often ghosting. I don't know why. I think one person gets freaked out by the relationship and then just goes into denial and doesn't heal. Well, you can't be with someone who doesn't heal. Otherwise, if you're doing all the healing and you meet with that person later, you're just not going to gel with them again. And you're going to probably wonder why, what you saw in them in the first place. But the idea is both people go off and do the healing and both people sort of ascend, I guess, or awaken to why the relationship's there. So the other person's got to understand that they are a twin flame or understand the role of the relationship and work on themselves. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about us. So it's about us finding within ourselves what we need and what we can do to bring our own powers and our own awareness up to a level where we can help others. So for a lot of people, they find, I have people saying to me, because it's so distressing going through the broken heart thing, and the separation. For some people, that separation is just really hard to bear because you're dealing with the attachment trauma that you've grown accustomed to through your life. And I know with lots of you guys here, you have very often understood, that a lot of you have had tough childhoods, or, you've put yourself in this position where you've been raised by a family that perhaps weren't as aligned with who you needed to be. So you may have had a fairly tough upbringing, which is pretty much standard for a lot of people in these relationships. From what I see, one or both people within the twin flame relationship have enormous things to work through in order to feel good by yourself. So a lot of that separation is about rejection because of your childhood. So just to quickly sum that up, because I always say to people, it's sort of a lot of psychology in here as well as what the relationship entails. So if, for example, you were brought up in a family where you had inconsistent parenting, so you had a mother who may have considered herself before you. You may have had a mother who didn't attend to your needs. So in your first 12 to 18 months of life, you learn how to trust. So if you've got a parent that isn't consistent with how to love you, you don't build your trust in that first 18 months, which everything else builds on. Okay, so if, for example, when you're a baby and you cry, your mother comes in, she checks your nappy, she checks that you're not hungry, she checks that you don't just need a cuddle, she checks that you're comfortable in bed, she might move you around. And then you'll cry again, mum comes in again, she might go through the same routine. Now, she may leave you a little bit longer next time to cry, and that's all about self-soothing, and that's okay. But if you've got a parent who is disengaged, maybe a young parent who really doesn't have the skills of motherhood, or a parent who's got other things to do, whether that be their own life. I've worked with drug-affected mothers. Here's a really good example. Baby's crying, mum's drugged out. So the baby cries and cries and cries and cries and nobody comes. So what happens is the baby grows up with this insecurity of wondering who's going to come and help me when I get into this situation. So the baby gets through the first 18 months and they don't have a good sense of trust. Now, all the other things, all the personalities, traits, all of the way you grow mentally is all built on that first 12 to 18 months. So if you haven't got a good sense of trust, then everything else that you start to learn doesn't really sit well with you. And that's why we have a lot of kids who act out between about 13 and 16, because they don't have a really good sense of self because they didn't have the trust to start with. So a lot of those people go out into the world and they build relationships around what they know. So if you had a parent who was cruel or non-attentive, then you're more likely to think, because that's how a parent loves you, that that's what love looks like. And this is where most of us fall down, because we're looking for a person who has the same attributes as a parent, because parents were supposed to love us. And a lot of people will say, yeah, and there's lots of attachment stuff, and we can talk about that another day. But a lot of people will marry or end up in relationships that are similar to the sort of relationships their parents had, or a personality that their parent had. And it's sort of like perpetuating the cruelty, because that is all you knew as love. So you don't really know what love is. So you can go through your life without really understanding what true love is, because you're building your concept of love based in what your parents taught you. When the twin flame person comes along, because of that attachment disorder or that abandonment that your parents had. Now, some people say, no, my parents were around me when I was young. That doesn't mean that a parent is bad. Some parents do what they can. Some parents shower their children with a lot of love and affection, and some of that isn't healthy either. So it's really hard to sort of gauge how much love and how much balance you give a child, but we know that parenting has to be consistent for that to work. So then you fall in love with someone who replicates one of your parents, and that stirs up a lot of stuff within you because you feel like they love you, right? So when things start to get a bit intense, the person that's usually the runner will run the other way, because all of a sudden they've got this sort of over emotional stuff they've got to deal with and they can't deal with it. The other person then gets thrown into rejection and that attachment. So then they have to work through all of that stuff that was left for them from childhood. They have to work through all of that to understand they haven't been rejected. The other person didn't run off and leave them. What they're feeling is within them, and it's a lack of love from the very beginning that's manifesting this way. Now, hang on a second. I just want to read some of the things you've written. Twin flames and narcissistic tendencies can be the same thing. The narcissist can be exactly the same. Your father wasn't consistent and with verbal and physical abuse. Well, you see, you would have grown up thinking that verbal and physical abuse was what you have to tolerate because that's how someone loves you. So you find someone that does the same thing without even meaning to. It's unconscious. But that's what you do. So you see in another person something that makes you feel, when they show you that they love you, because that's what you saw as love when you were a child. And our journey on this planet is to find out how to love ourselves. And that's very clear to me. I don't need to be told that. I naturally worked that out for myself. If you don't have self-love, you cannot love another person. So if you're in denial from that experience or your childhood or whatever, loving yourself is so important. You can't love someone else unless you know how to love yourself. But somebody went, did you get me back, TS? That's not true, Scott. So you're probably looking at it a little wrong. So Scott says after having a twin flame relationship, it was a blitz and you can't find anything the same again. That is because you're not changing what you see as love. So you're looking at that relationship as a standalone thing. What you have to take from that is it wasn't love. that you felt. It wasn't love. It was a lesson for you to learn from that. And what happens is people go, well, I must have been totally in love with that person. And then I need to go and find that again. So guess what? We go out and we jump into the next relationship that's exactly the same without working on ourselves or learning the lesson. So what happens is people start to cycle then, because once that pattern's fit, if you don't work on yourself, you're going to keep finding the same person over and over again. Hey, Felice, how you going? Okay, so you told your ex that he was worse than your father. My darling, you married your father. You found your father all over again because you think, well, my dad loved me. That's what parents do. Parents love their children, right? People say it to me all the time. No, some parents, I tell you, I know, I've seen it. Some people just don't love their children. They don't. That's the way it is. So if you grow up thinking that is what love looks like, you're naturally going to go out and try and find what you had. So the amount of people who end up marrying one of their parents, and Freud was right there, is undeniable. We see people in karmic relationships for that reason, because they're not learning the lessons they need to learn. So they end up in these relationships that are so abusive because they're not understanding. So you see this person who comes out this incredibly abusive relationship and goes and jumps into the next one. And you go, why did she do that for? She was in a really abusive relationship. She should have known. She should have worked that out. Why would she go back and marry someone else exactly the same? Because she hasn't learnt the pattern of behavior. She's looking for the next love. She's not looking for the learning that she's getting from that. So what happens is people cycle and cycle and cycle and cycle before they understand what they're doing. But the universe just keeps giving you the same lesson. You keep picking the same person because you're not understanding that the problem has to be solved for you to find the true love you're looking for. Let me just read through a few more. You know what, Cherie, that sort of takes us into the conversation around personal boundaries. So there's so much depth to this, okay? Sorry, if you just, I'll try and do as much as I can within this to try and get you to understand. When you're a child who's brought up in a household where you have parents who are unrealistic, cruel, abusive, non-attentive, non-consistent, there is this, and many of us are empaths, so we've learned this behavior along the way. You tend to sort of play down your emotions, because if you play down your emotions and you play down your own needs, you're likely to please your parents. So if you have a parent who's very aggressive and yells all the time, you tend to sort of pussyfoot around them so you don't get yelled at. So what happens is your true personality gets dumped and dumped and dumped. And what happens is you grow up as an adult with a mask on. So you grow up being the person that you needed to be so you didn't get into trouble, so you didn't have conflict, so you didn't get abused. So you learn to manipulate yourself, basically. So when you get into a relationship and the narcissist or a person that you meet is going to come into the relationship with you, the narcissist is just as damaged as you are, regardless of what anybody says. They may be cruel, they may act out a little differently, but they're just as damaged as you. And we tend to sort of put all the emphasis on the narcissist being the cruel one, but we don't put the onus on ourselves to take responsibility for our own manipulation within that relationship, because we allowed them to treat us that way. So what we do is we tend to put aside our own needs like we did when we were a child, because we think we love them. So we don't have any boundaries. We don't stand up to them when they're cruel or mean. And very often what happens then is you tend to start developing this relationship where the narcissist gets away with everything, or your partner gets away with everything, because you're not saying that is not right. You can't do that to me, because you're so used to having that done. So the first thing we have to learn is, how do we put our personal boundaries in place? Now, if you have someone who's constantly, treating you poorly, and you're never saying to them, that's hurting my feelings, stop treating me that way, I don't want to put up with it, then the person thinks that's okay. So what happens is they start there and then they push. Now, I talk to people all the time about red flags because we all see the red flags and we ignore them. We say, oh, that's a really bad thing that person did to me, but maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe that was just a one-off thing. And then another one comes along, we go, we'll just let that one go because we don't have to worry. That's a red flag, but we just ignore that one, we'll be fine. And before we know it, we've totally manipulated, or we're totally manipulated into accepting all that. And the person who's got the shoe on the other foot, they're going, wow, I'm getting away with all this. So I'll push it even more. And I'll push it even more and even more. And we go, there's more and more red flags, but we just keep ignoring them. And then, of course, we get to a point where we go, we don't want to lose the person. We don't want to have conflict. We don't want to, upset them and have them walk away and break our heart. So we keep putting in. So we keep putting in more and more, and the other person keeps taking, or vice versa. So what happens is, in the end, you have an extremely toxic relationship. And then the empath or the other person starts to get really filthy because you start to get resentful because you've been treating me that way for a long time and now I'm angry. I'm starting to get pissed off and I don't like it. So you start bucking. And then what happens is the other person comes in harder because they've got away with it for so long. So it ends up in a toxic mess. Totally. So what you've got to do is you've got to understand what boundaries are, red flags are, how you should be treated. So you need to spend time by yourself to understand how you should be treated as a human being and the sort of things you don't want to have to put up with and the sort of ways that you want to be treated. So let me just go back to some of the comments. Yes, see, that's it. You've got to work on yourself. You can't just keep looking for the next love. Otherwise, you're going to take it all into the next relationship with you. Now, Erica, when you say that you're not good enough for anybody to stay in your life, even in that comment there, that would say to me that's where you need to start because you are good enough. Everybody is good enough. So someone's told you that and it's stuck with you. So you know how I talk about limiting beliefs and negative beliefs about yourself? That's where you need to start. So you need to really get to a point where you know what you deserve in a relationship. And nobody deserves to be treated poorly. But unless someone treats you poorly, how do you know what you want? So when you've had relationships like that, you have to come away from the relationship and you have to start to look at, why am I like this? Why am I grieving so hard? What is it about my emotional stuff? Because a lot of us have learned, and as I said, with the other person being cruel, a lot of us have learned emotional manipulation. That's how we hang on to people. We make them need us. We make them need us really badly. And when they treat us badly, we need them more. So there's a real gap in our thinking because of the way we've been raised as children. So let me just go back. Yeah, I think there's lots of difference there. No, twin flames are not really a fantasy, but there's a lot of psychology behind this. And after doing the spirituality and the psychology, I see how it works because I can see both sides of a coin. The thing is, psychology doesn't match it. Because it happens just way too often and it happens in a very similar way. And there's just something about it that doesn't sit right with psychology. But like I always say to you, I don't think psychology is the be all to end all. But there's certainly things within psychology that we know still work the same. So when you separate from someone, if you go into your low vibration, you're grieving, you're unhappy, you're sad, and you're vibrating really low, then your neediness and your desire for that person becomes so great it can be overpowering and we get very emotional. It's very hard to heal from that. But you've got to heal because you can't find someone while you're in that low vibration. Otherwise, you're going to go and find the same person again with a different face. Well, see, the thing is with love, I think that this is probably coming from my own perspective. Love is not really conditional. So if you meet someone and they're trying to change who you are, or they're sort of passing snide comments, or there seems to be jealousy around you or competition, then you haven't met someone who loves you because those things don't exist within love. So you're very much meeting on a very even plane. So if somebody's complaining about the way you do something or trying to change the way you are, then they can't really love you, can they, for what you are? Because they wouldn't try to change you then. So it's sort of like love is really very unconditional. It's about accepting a person for who they are, warts and all. Now, that doesn't mean accepting bad treatment. That's different. Bad treatment means you need to stand up for yourself and say, I'm not tolerating that. So, who's to say that some of those people you've met, if you just start off in the beginning and you challenged the red flags and you challenged the bad behavior and they walked away from you because you couldn't mold you into something they wanted to see or change you to be the person they thought you should be, then they weren't the right person for you anyway, were they? So it's and that's it. We tend to sort of give into the relationship all the time, thinking this is our opportunity to have someone in our life. So therefore, I'm going to put everything I've got into this person. That doesn't work. So, okay, denial, absolutely. Yeah, see, the fact is, if you loved yourself, then you would know that you were good enough as you were. And if you're good enough for yourself as you are, and you love yourself enough, then you're going to find someone who's going to love you as you are. So when they don't, if they complain about you or they find reason to find fault with you, then immediately you're going to know that that person doesn't love you. That's a red flag. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a need to stand up for yourself. Like I said, if somebody comes late on the first date, you go, well, okay, sure. Could have been a late bus, taxi mightn't have come. There's a red flag there, but you know what? One red flag's okay. We can ignore one. That's it. No more. So if they come late on the second date, it's not good enough. You're done, finished, goodbye, see you later. So if that person really does want to work with you, then they have to acknowledge that and they have to say, yep, I've got a real problem with my tardiness. It won't happen again. I respect you enough to make sure that doesn't happen again. So, it's up to us to put the boundaries in place. It's up to us to call people out when they treat us poorly, regardless. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be anywhere. That's why you end up with people moving out of your life, because when you start loving yourself, you won't put up with people treating you badly. It's not the right thing to do. Ask yourself how you treat others. That's probably a good indication. How do you treat other people? Would you turn up late for a date more than once? If the first time you made a mistake and you said, look, I'm really sorry, I've made a mistake, would you do it again? How do you respect others? Why is it wrong to expect the other person can't treat you the same way? Okay. Erica, yes, that was a little heartbreaking, isn't it? Yes, self-love and balance is the only way to love others, but you've got to make sure you love yourself first. Erica, there's a lot to be said for some of the things you're doing. And I think that you have to understand that, you have to watch how you're treating yourself to start with, because if you're treating yourself poorly, oh, hey, Jules, how you going? If you're treating yourself poorly, then you're only going to expect other people to treat you the same way. When we're born into a family, and if we go back and I always talk about the Akashic records. My understanding is that we plan everything before we come to the earth, so we pick and choose what we want to have. But when we're born, we're pure. We're tiny little human beings. We don't listen to the Christian religion that tells us we're all born sinners, because I don't believe we are. I believe we're all perfect and absolutely beautiful from the moment we're born. And that personality that develops in a way that, you learn how to trust, you learn how to love, you learn how to accept, and you don't have any judgment. So you don't have racism, you don't have ageism. These are all taught along the way. They're taught by our families, they're taught by our schools, they're taught by our friends, we're taught by people who influence us at some stage or another. So we grow up to be a product of our environment. Underneath the product of our environment lies our true self. That's who we really are. And when the twin flame relationship comes into being, if you're lucky enough to have someone set you off on that path, then you are working to becoming the person you are meant to be when you were born. So you're looking back, trying to work out your personality, who you are, and it's huge. It's huge. It questions everything for us. It questions our emotional states. It questions our attachments. It questions our ideas around rejection, our hurts, our pains, our addictions, our lusts, our loves, everything. Questions everything, because the universe is trying to get you to understand that underneath all that stuff that you've been conditioned with lies a very pure human being, and that human being is worth loving. But we have to get through all of the other stuff. I have, oh, you're gorgeous. Oh, you've got to go. Okay, you'll have to catch up later, Cherie. Thank you for coming in. I That's right. It's absolutely, it's huge, Jules. You know, we don't even realize the journey we're on, and that trying to find again who we were or who we were supposed to be. So, you know, for example, like I talked a little bit, you know, if you have parents who screamed and yelled at you all the time, then you may never express your anger. This was a big problem for me because I used to say to people all the time, I never get angry. I never get angry. I'm not angry. I never get angry. But I didn't really know that I did. But every time I got angry, I would push it down because I was so scared of expressing my anger. And when I started to really dig in, what happened was I started to get the pains in my body. So my body started to experience muscle pain, but joint pain. I was in so much pain and I freaked out. I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm this really active person. I'm on the go all the time. And now I feel like I can barely move. So I went to the doctors and I had all the tests done and they came back and said, no, nothing there. And other people said to me, oh, there's something wrong with you. You need to keep pushing the doctor. And I was like, no, metaphysical. I need to understand what is wrong with me. So I started looking into it and found that suppressing anger sits in your bones and your joints. So I started working on my anger. I started trying to express it. I tried to do the beating the pillow, the screaming, the yelling. I was so angry, and trying to sort of get it to come out so I could have a huge explosion and I'd be fine. Anyway, after I did that, I went through the first thing, and then a couple of weeks later, I got really angry at something and I felt the anger come up and I was like, what is that? Oh, I don't like that feeling. And I went to push it down again and I went, what are you doing? It's anger. That is what it feels like. And I was like, it's horrible. I don't like it. And I was like, whether I like it or not is irrelevant. I have to acknowledge that I'm angry. I have to acknowledge that fear, that pain, that discomfort. And then I just have to move past it. I cannot dump it down any longer. So all those years of not expressing my anger and just putting it inside me, I made myself quite unwell. So that's just a good experience of something that, or good example of something that can happen to us by swallowing down our feelings. So not everybody meets their twin flame. No, Scott, not everybody does. No, not everybody does. It's just something that happens. Somebody's lost my picture. Somebody lost my voice before. Yeah, I think that, you know, it's, no, not everyone is a twin flame. Not everyone has a twin flame. So it's just, I think everybody has a twin flame, but they're not always going to be with you in a lifetime. Maybe that's the best way to explain it. Yeah, see, Jules has been on a very similar journey. The anger thing is something, that probably a lot of us experience. I remember when my daughter was young, she had a tremendous temper and she would explode. And I used to say to her, it's okay to feel angry, honey. If you feel angry, that's fine. You just have to learn how to express it in a way that's comfortable for you. And she would go into her bedroom, she would cry, she would do what she needed to do, and then she would come out when she was done. But I just never recognized it because I just dumped it all the time. I just went, what is that horrible feeling? I do not like that feeling. And I'd put it away instead of doing what I needed to do and speaking up and saying, I'm really uncomfortable with that, or that makes me feel really sad. I would put it away. So, with my last marriage, I was married and with my ex-husband for like 14 years. We never had a fight, ever. Why? Sounds like the perfect relationship. No, because I just gave in. I didn't want the conflict. I didn't want the pain. So I just let him have what he wanted. That's not a very nice way to have a relationship, not when your own needs aren't considered. No, not all twin flames end up together. A lot of twin flames, one person does all the work and does all the waking up, the developing, and the changing, and sometimes the other person doesn't do any of it. And that's why I say to people, you could meet up with your twin flame later, and you may not like them anymore. You may not have anything in common with them anymore because you're who you are now. You've done all the work to become your true self. And if the other person hasn't done the work, they're going to be vibrating well and truly under where you are because you've done all the work to vibrate higher. So it's sort of like you're going to have a difference in your vibration. And that means often that you're not going to sort of work. I've got a few on my Facebook page who've done wonderful things together. They're amazing together. They do all the spiritual work and complement each other beautifully. How sick did I get, Jules? I couldn't go to work for a while, a few weeks. I couldn't move. I felt like I can't even explain it. My body just hurt so badly, and I was just it made me feel so down and so depressed. But I could barely get out of bed. Everything hurt. I swear I could count every bone in my body. And at first, I sort of struggled to go to work, and I struggled to do things at home. And then I thought, no, it frightened me. It really scared me. So I thought I'll go to the doctor and check with the doctor. And when I got to the doctor, it was really funny. I'd never been to this doctor before because I'd just come down to Wollongong. And I'd gone in, I had he was great. He was fabulous. He ran all these tests and everything. And then when I went back, of course, I was still in lots of pain. And I went back in anyway. So he said to me, we're sitting there talking, and he's gone through the test, and he said to me, you are really healthy. There's nothing wrong with you. All your measures of blood are great. And I was like, oh, okay then. Anyway, and then he said to me, you married? And I went, that's a bit cheeky coming from a doctor. And I went, no. And he said, who do you live with? And I said, no one. And he went, oh. Okay. And then he started talking and asking me all these personal questions. And I thought, it's done. Doctor's trying to crack on to me. But he wasn't. He was checking for depression, and I didn't feel depressed at all. I was in pain. I felt really uncomfortable, and it was getting me down. But in terms of depression, joint pain, someone else has been through the same thing. Anyway, so I came home and I sat and I thought, I've always been a big Louise Hayes person. I've always looked at metaphysical illness. Like, I know for many, many years I had a lot of trouble with my throat, with infections and lungs and things like that, and found that was not expressing myself. So I did a lot of work on that, but I didn't realize how trapping your emotions in your body can affect your joints like it was. Anyway, so I came home, I got myself on vitamin B, because it was something I wasn't taking. So I do take quite a lot of vitamins. I got myself on vitamin B, got into a really healthy eating regime, and then started really working on the emotions. And I got an energy healer. I have a very good person that I know who's an energy healer too. So she worked a lot. So if you need a good energy healer, she really helped me. A lot of stuff dating back to my childhood. So you did Reiki training, so you can do your own healing that way. So what happened was I got an energy healer in and asked her to have a good look around my body and see what I needed. And then I started working on it. And then it was super because I reckon I cleared it up in maybe a couple of days. Once I'd identified it and started to acknowledge that it was anger and that I needed to release it, it went really quickly. And my body's fabulous now. Well, it's still my body. So you do. It's putting anger deep inside of you. I will give her the name. Her name is Brenda Coty, and she's I'm trying to think how to do it. I'll put it up on my YouTube channel or on my face. Are you guys all on my Facebook page? I'll put her down for you. Actually, email me, and I will give you her details. She's an energy practitioner, so she works with clearing the energy from your body, but she can identify where it's coming from. And my understanding is from the people I've sent to her, she's really identified stuff for them too. So it's crazy. Yeah, she does it all from Canada. She's absolutely gorgeous. So I've met with her a few times and we've done a lot of work. I think she's very reasonably priced, and she will give you a complete rundown on what you need to do and what you're missing in your body. So body code, emotion code, one of those things she works with. But she's fabulous, and she does do remote healing. So if you do need her, just flick me an email and I'll send you her details back. Yeah, Scott, I do get what you're saying to see whether you're still vibrating on the level. But I tell you what, if you're still not doing the work and your person's not doing the work, your relationship will never come together. It just won't happen at all because you both need to do the work to make that relationship work. We have some of Western Australia. How are you, Bobby? Wow, it's been lovely talking to you all today. Is there any questions, or do you feel like you have a better understanding? Because I'm quite happy to talk more on this another time if you want to help you on your journey. Okay. Yes, that's very true. So let's just talk about that, Lenore. When the two of you come apart for whatever reason and you've gone through your grief and you have an understanding that you've obviously been in a relationship with someone who could be your twin flame, because a lot of people don't recognize that straight away. But then they go into the whole, I need to do the healing now. I'm understanding the journey. If you have a strong connection with spirit, you know that has been something that's happened. You have between you telepathy. Now, my understanding is the other person and you are very closely aligned. So if the other person's feeling upset or angry, often you can feel yourself getting angry or upset about something, wondering why you feel that way, or disappointed or despondent or happy. And it comes out of the blue and you're like, where did that feeling come from? So you have a very strong telepathic link with the other person. And that means you dream about them often too. And the dreams are quite convoluted. They're really weird. But anyway, you do dream about them. And I know that when I have done the work on myself, Spirit has said to me, while you're working on yourself, you actually encourage the other person to heal as well. Now, the thing is, I always think there are two different types of healing. There's the conscious healing where we go, okay, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to go for walks, I'm going to eat really well, conscious healing. And there's the unconscious healing. So the healing that comes through crying, through, sort of those things that you do that you don't intentionally set out to do. So understanding, how to live in the moment, how to let go of the past, how to not predict the future, those sort of things. That makes me funny, doesn't it, coming from a psychic? Not predicting outcomes, not trying to control how your life is, letting go of control. All of those things, the person that you're connected to very strongly also starts working on those things. So you may do it consciously, you may be consciously meditating, but the other person may not be consciously doing it, but it helps them to heal too. So if you're doing the work you need to do, you're in effect helping the other person to heal because they're tuning in to your emotion. So if you're vibrating high, then it encourages them to do that. But if that person's in a state of denial where they do not recognize the connection, they may not tune into that energy. So their process of healing may be much slower because then it is done unconsciously rather than consciously. So if we have a problem or issue and we need to do something about it, we get in there, we meditate, we look after ourselves, we do what we need to do, and we consciously make that effort. But if you've got somebody at the other end who's not consciously doing that, the unconscious process may take them a lot longer. That's why you find the twin flame who's been the the chaser or the person who's done all the work often is so much more in tune with everything that's going on because they've consciously healed. But your other person may not. They may stay in that state of denial. They may not want to. They may not want the relationship. It might be too overwhelming for them. They may have ran away from the feelings because they were too much. And they may just cut off and never try to get themselves to that point again. Let's face it, all of you would agree with me. It's such hard work, and I feel like sometimes, you're constantly trying to self-improve. You get something right and you think, yeah, I'm feeling really, really good. And then the next thing comes along and you're like, yeah, I really need to work on that. Or you recognize something within yourself. I still have a huge issue when I'm driving. I still get really, really upset with people when they don't do the right thing. I have a mindset that people need to follow the rules. Why didn't people not want to follow the rules? I have to learn that one. That's what I'm working on. It is always work and it is difficult. But you know what? Would you go back to where you were? Because that's what I ask myself. Could you go back to living in the dark? Could you go back to being where you were? Because that is the question, isn't it? So, yes, I really believe you can do some work with your divine masculine. If it's your divine masculine or your divine feminine, definitely by doing the work on yourself, you're helping them. But if you never get them to the point where they come back to you in union, at least you know that you've done the healing or helped them heal some things about themselves, even if it's only waking them up to some of their issues from childhood that they have to face or recognize. I mean, they can't stay in deep denial forever. Not unless they're, and that's the trouble too. You're sort of dealing with people who might then go and immerse themselves in drugs and alcohol because they can't cope with all those feelings. So you may be dealing with someone who in effect is your divine counterpart who may end up with a drug or alcohol problem rather than facing up to, the feelings. Some people can't. I remember going to visit someone in rehab. The baby that she had been taken off her, and I went to do an assessment on her in rehab. And I said to her, "How are you going? How's it all going for you?" And she said to me, "It's really hard doing without drugs." And I said to her, and she was very addicted. And I said to her, "What do you mean it's very hard? Tell me, talk to me about it." And she said to me, "I have to face my feelings now. I haven't done that for so many years. I've been drugged up for so many years. I haven't had to face all this stuff, all the abuse from her childhood, all the emotional stuff that she dumped down with drugs." You have to feel your feelings. So some people don't want to do that. So they get into alcohol, drugs. Some people become workaholics. Some people, whatever they can do to avoid the pain of thinking about something. And that pain's always going to be there. It won't go away. You're still going to think about it. But if you can keep yourself preoccupied with 1,001 other things, then you don't have to face the pain. I guess for some of us, facing the pain was what we had to do to face the darkness within to try and help ourselves. So, bye, Maria. Thank you. So it's not always easy to walk away, Gigi, and that is the hardest part. Trying to disconnect from the connection, because the twin flame connection is very, very. It's a very strong connection and it's very difficult to separate from. And to be honest with you, you can do a lot of those, soul retrievals, trying to soul retrievals, I don't like cord cutting. It's sort of more removing the cords that attach you to the person. But the hardest part is just trying to release the emotions around the attachment. So I always say to people, you're probably going to always love the person regardless, because they've done an amazing thing for you. Like, you have to forgive them and you have to say thank you, because what they've done is they've sent you onto this road of recovery where you get to be the best version of yourself possible. So you can't be upset with them for doing that. But the pain of the attachment is the part that's difficult to let go of. That's not the love. Once you let go of the attachment, and that is the attachment is that emotional draw that pulls you in every time, that puts you straight back in that emotional state. Once you learn to let that go, then the only thing you're left with is true love. Like, that's it. And that is really where you need to be. So, and that takes a lot of work. It is hard to cut the cord, but you're going through it now, Emily. Yeah. So, the best advice I can give you, or the best, I suppose, way of working with this is trying to learn to live in the moment. Because what happens is when we're in the emotional state, our emotions take us back to the past. So we keep going through the memories, and it's generally the good stuff. The hurt and the pain comes from what you think is rejection. So immediately somebody's walked away from you or somebody's separated from you, you immediately go into your own emotions. This has nothing to do with them. But you start to feel that that is the rejection, and that goes back to your childhood again. So if you missed the beginning when I was talking about that, you can go back and listen to it, because it's often to do with our own childhood attachments. So that pain you're feeling, that emotional pain that you're putting yourself through, that's you doing that, because you're trying to heal that pain that goes right back through your life. So when they make you feel that pain, or they don't make you feel, when you feel that pain from separation, that starts to bring up everything that you've had through your life. So you're working through years and years of pain. And that can be very difficult for people. You can do soul retrievals. You can do and then you can do things such as I said, well, letting go of the cords, finding meditations to let go of the cords. But the most effective thing I found was living in the moment, so that you're not going back into the past and reliving memories, and you're not trying to control an outcome in the future, because you keep visualizing how you want things to be. You do that whole, maybe they'll come riding in on a white horse and rescue me. Well, they're not going to do that. You're not going to get rescued. You are going to have to rescue yourself. That's it. So we start to visualize the future and the outcomes, and we keep thinking about that. So we go backwards to the past and we think of all the good memories, and then we go into the future thinking that, one day they're going to come rushing in and say they got it all wrong and they're in love with us and they want to have a life with us. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. So there's no point in visualizing the future you want, and there's no point living in the past, because that just brings in pain, because you're trying to deal with what you feel is the rejection and the abandonment. So you're better off just to learn to live in the moment. And that's why I always promote Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, because living in the moment is the best way to be, being consciously aware whenever that pain comes around. So you're letting the pain just dissipate, and eventually it goes. But that can take a little bit of time. Reiki can help, definitely. Energy healing definitely helps. I think probably the best thing you can do is, apart from just doing the work yourself, it's my favorite book ever, Jules. So taught me a lot, that book. And every time I come on and talk about it, somebody writes to me and says, I've just bought the book and it's fabulous. I can't put it down. The other person who's fantastic, and I know some of you watch Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he really teaches you about the power of living in the moment. Letting go of the manifesting your future. What are you talking about, Scott? Manifesting your future is sort of a little bit different. I'm talking about controlling the outcomes. So when you keep dreaming about a person that you want to be with, where you keep trying to visualize how they're going to come and rescue you, you're going to meet them again, or you're going to see them again, you have to let go of the outcomes, because the chances are pretty good that spirit is not going to do it the way you want it done. If they're going to return, it's probably going to be in a very different way to what you visualize. I know that because I'm a psychic, remember? So sometimes I say to people, oh, yeah, you've got somebody coming in, and yeah, they probably will be like this. And no, it doesn't come in the way people see it. And it's not always exactly what you're going to imagine, because your imagination wants to go off and make things very different to what, what might actually happen. So manifesting your future, I think that manifesting is about just giving spirit what you want and just waiting for spirit to provide you with it, not trying to control it. So if you want to have a job, you just put it out there that you want to have a job, and then you let it go and just let the universe do what it needs to do. You can't control getting there. So you can put things in place, like you do an application, you can try look for jobs, but at the end of the day, the job that's right for you will come towards you. You know what? I get when you say it feels like punishment. It does, because you're bringing up all the stuff from your past here, and you are punishing yourself. And that's why I always say to people, you're just punishing yourself. You have to find some way to let go of this energy, or you're going to be living with it for years. And that is really difficult. But try not to see it as punishment. Try to see it as a lesson about becoming a better person. It's allowing you to transform into the best person you can be. So that's a great thing. And that's why I say you just have to learn to forgive. You've got to let go of the energy, and you've got to understand that you've been put on the journey to be a better version of yourself. So it's not really punishment. And yeah, it's sad. And that pain of feeling like you've been rejected, that pain of feeling abandoned is really tough, because you're drawing on all the energies that you've learned, everything you've learned from, and it is like an addiction. It absolutely is, because you're pulling everything in. This isn't just what this person's done. This is all of your emotions coming in for you to work with. And that is really difficult. But you know what? The most amazing thing is we can all relate to each other. Nearly everybody on here has been in this situation. Isn't that huge? That's really amazing that everybody has been through something very similar. And at the end of the day, you I love that, Lenore. Maybe if you inject yourself with a bit of disinfectant, it will get rid of the pain. And the idea, Scott, is it breaks your heart. But it isn't the heartbreak you're getting just from them. Remember, it's all the pain you've experienced throughout your life is all coming in at once to be fixed. This is a chance for you to fix yourself, basically. Not that we really fix, but to mend yourself in some way, shape, or form. Please don't take the disinfectant thing seriously. I so didn't mean it. You just got to inject yourself with love. That's what it comes down to, is you've just got to counteract that all with love. You've just got to remember that the more love you pour into yourself, the better off you're going to be, right? It's all about self-love. So what this person's taught you is you didn't love yourself enough in the first place. You loved them more. It's not a real good way to be, is it? Oh, how funny. Oh, no, my veins are fabulous. Every time I go to have blood taken, the nurses get all excited because they don't have any trouble taking my blood. My blood vessels sort of stand out on my hands. So, yeah, my veins are really, really on show, especially on a hot day. I'm like veins everywhere. But yes, no, don't go and buy some, Scott. Please don't do that to yourself. Remember, love. That's what it's all about. It's learning to love yourself, learning to go back, love yourself from the very small person you started with through to where you've felt this pain. You're healing all of that time period. That's why it seems so hard. But you see, if you try not to heal and you avoid it, you're just going to go out and meet someone else again who's going to just dredge it all up for you again. So it's just not worth ignoring. You've got to work on yourself. You've got to work on loving yourself. You've got to work on what is a healthy relationship. How can I have good boundaries so that if I meet someone again, I understand what I need to do to make sure a relationship works the right way? And you know what? You can avoid all of that. You can avoid it all and just never have a relationship. But as long as you're comfortable enough to be comfortable with who you are and love yourself enough that you're comfortable with yourself, you could stay single forever if you want to. But if you want to find a healthy relationship, then you've got to do the healing. Hey, Melissa, how are you going? You've got to do the work that you need to do. So anyway, I'm going to close off. It's 1 hour. I can talk about anything. Absolutely. And Jules, I think people have to sort of see it that way too, because a lot of people see the pain and the hurt and and it is really, I won't take that away from anybody. There's nothing worse than the pain of heartbreak. It really digs deep. It just gets to the very core of you where you just don't don't really know how to work with that. And I think, at the end of the day, if you can try and see it as being, some way of healing yourself to become a better person, then your reward is that you will meet someone who's a better person because you will respect and love yourself more. So you're already preparing yourself for somebody much better than you left behind. Sorry, Melissa, but you can go back and watch it. We've been talking Twin Flames if you're interested. And I'll get off now. I'll come back tomorrow. Don't forget, it has been really good, Hayley. I love talking about it. I've got a Facebook Live tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock if you're around, 9 o'clock Australian time. There's no daylight saving now, so we're on the same time here, I think, except for the places that have differences in normal times. You're very welcome, Erica. You take care. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you all for joining me. Oh, thank you. I'm just sharing all the information you're giving me. And we'll talk about it again. We're going to do these more often. And I love that you've interacted with me. You've shared some of your personal stuff. Thank you so much for sharing with me. It takes a lot of courage to sort of get up and say, this is how I'm feeling. I hope you're going well, Gigi, and you're looking after yourself out in the big world. And BB, I think your names are fabulous, but I'm only calling you by your tags. So you be safe and stay well. I know you're still out in the world. You're welcome, Suzanne. I'll see you all tomorrow. Much love. Take care. Mwah.